Hello, I'm Mark Nelson. You might know my work because I've been working in the fantasy, horror, science fiction field for quite a few years. I've worked in different venues. Comic books is one of them, in which I work with Dark Horse doing the Aliens comics. I've worked at DC with a creator-owned project, Blood and Shadows, with Joe Lansdale. Feud, a creator-owned project with Mike Barron. And I've worked on the Clive Barker line. I've inked a lot of Marvel books, DC books, done some cover work and interior pinups and things like that. Secondly, I've worked a lot in the fantasy role-playing game field, and I started out with TSR, the Dungeons and Dragons people. I've done a lot of monster creation for them and their monster manuals. I've done a lot of RPG interior illustrations. At WotC, I've done magic cards, and I've done other cards for different companies. In FASA, I did also a lot of the black and white interior illustrations. Thirdly, I have done book covers for independent, small horror and science fiction publications, Subterranean and Cemetery Dance, and black and white interiors for magazines and different things within that genre also. Finally, I've done a lot of work in the video game industry. I started out as a staff artist. I worked my way up to being a concept artist and finally an art director. So I've worked on a lot of different games. The main games you might see are the Star Wars game, a Star Trek game, Quake 4 game, and Soldier of Fortune, and I did a lot of things for Pi Studios. So that's me in a sort of small little nutshell, but we're not really here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Mannish Sycovia. Mannish Sycovia, his work has been lost for years. The portfolio he did was always thought of never to be found again. It was in Innsmouth, but with the destruction of Innsmouth in 1927 by the American government, we thought this was completely lost. There were rumors about it coming back and forth, and somebody had it and somebody didn't have it, but we finally tracked it down. So what we have here is Mannish's portfolio. He was an artist. We put this together through his diaries and a few letters, personal letters that we could find. That was studying in Russia. He was studying at the Academy, religious and occult art. The revolution in 1914 drove him from Russia. He then ended up in Innsmouth in Massachusetts with the benefactor of the Marsh family, who wanted him to come in and make drawings of the family and cover their whole lineage. Now, we do know that there was something that was happening that he couldn't get in to see the Marsh family right away. So in this time, he walked through Innsmouth and he made records and visual drawings of just who inhabited the city at this time. So here is the portfolio of Mannish. We're going to open this up and look at some of the drawings that we found in the portfolio. The first drawing is a portrait of Mannish, handsome devil that he is. So you can see this is when he started working on the book and the illustrations of the denizens of Innsmouth. So here's again a regular character, the butcher of Innsmouth. Here we have the baker of Innsmouth, and you can see his attention to detail and how he's looking at the fish and the bread, the sort of little eyes and everything else that might be in there. You have a fisherman of Innsmouth bringing in the catch of the day. You're going to have the pharmacist of Innsmouth, where, as if you look at some of these things, they might be old cure-alls and different things. In 1925, we didn't have a lot of the kind of things that we have today. And everyday life that you've got that can happen, like the golfer. You have the Innsmouth baseball team. You have a prestidigitator, the magician of Innsmouth, entertaining the people. You're going to have the proud father taking his daughter for a walk. You're going to have the family getting a family portrait done, riding a creature at the local fair. All right, so we have a range of pets that Mannish also showed. You've got here just the regular local pet, perhaps the naughty one that's up on the roof screaming and yelling. But now we do know that he got a little bit closer at this point in time after doing these sort of studies of that They saw his work. They wanted to bring him into that esoteric order of Dagon and let him start to record some of those things. So now you can kind of get the feeling that the work is getting into the change that was happening at Innsmouth, the corruption that Cthulhu would change these people into some of these very bizarre type of creatures, and the priestesses that would be carrying on Dagon's work, and perhaps the priesthood. But this is where, things were moving at the very end of his portfolio. But you're going to have to get the book to see where it all goes. So, Alaxis Press and I, who are really excited about bringing these things to you, because we've finally found these drawings, want to produce them as a whole book so you too can enjoy the kind of love that we've seen as his work goes into Innsmouth. It starts on the surface and it goes right into the heart. And I think this is something that would be a great addition to anyone's H.P. Lovecraft collection that is out there. The Diary of an Artist and What He Saw.